What's up, YouTube? It is your girl Latrina, and I am back again today with another tarot spread read. And starting off in our first row, we do get the card of the Lovers and the Two of Wands, which does speak of a choice and even a choice that was not made. There was some indecision, and there was even a choice made that was a bad decision. Whenever you see this Two of Wands in the reverse, it lets you know that there was a choice made regarding with this Lovers card. Speaking of that choice, and it even this Two of Wands speaks of a choice when it's in the upright, but when it does come in the reverse, it does speak of a poor choice, and it may be regarding a situation involving a house, which does come out in that first row, which usually tells me that this is the main, topic. This is the main row of attraction or of significance. Because also coming out in that first row, we get the Privileged Lady card. And the Memories of Love in the reverse. And then that Lover's card does give the message of a red rum. So this may have had something to do with the choice that was made, this poor choice. This poor choice did involve something about a red rum, a murder. That's what this poor choice was about. And it was a red rum. Maybe it was to, attain a house. Or maybe this red rum was the choice made, something about this house. And this privileged lady is probably the person that did end up making this choice to commit this red rum for this house. And it looks like there was no memories of love. And that card usually speaks of the Six of Cups. But it is in the reverse. So that does tell me that the Six of Cups does speak of, the breadcrumb. Or some people say it's equal give and take. But when it comes out in the reverse, that lets me know that there, was no type of equality in this situation regarding this house and this choice that was made. This poor choice made by this privileged lady regarding a house. Because next we do get the Temperance card along with the Seven of Pentacles in that second row, which the Temperance does speak of that balancing two situations or two substances even coming together. It's speaking about balances and proper mixtures of some things, bringing things together is what Temperance kind of reminds me. And then with it coming out with that Seven of Pentacles, it also can regard like an emulsification, like when they emulsify a liquid, but that's mixed with oil and water, they have to emulsify it to get it to properly blend together. And so whenever I see that Temperance, it just kind of reminds me of a food emulsifier, something additive that they do have to add to get this proper oil and water to mix. To get two substances to come together, they have to add an emulsifier to it, And that's exactly what they maybe had to do. They had to find a way to bring two things together with an emulsifier, and it did, it did regard okay, we know it involves a house, but then we get this Seven of Pentacles coming out, which does speak of, like investments and, something that you did plant, something that you did actually sow into the ground. And then you actually waited for the results, and you actually had to see if this mixture did, come together correctly with this oil and water. Because that temperance, it reminds me of trying to get oil and water to come together. But you're going to need to use an emulsifier to do that in any situation. Sometimes heat, when you boil something to a certain temperature, that can act as an emulsifier when it can bring the two substances together. Regarding this actual, it was actually something that was waiting. They were waiting to harvest. This privileged lady here, she tried to get something to mix together. She tried to get two things to come together. And she probably didn't have an emulsifier, because that's the only thing that can blend that together without heat. You're going to need something like a chemical to bring those two elements together. And because this harvest, or this expected crop that they had planted and waited upon to see the results, if it had grown anything, there's a coward involved in that situation coming out in that second row. This coward, was trying to find this proper balance and this proper mixture, trying to bring something together to mix. Because we do also get the widower card in that second row coming out in the reverse. So that, usually speaks of someone being left alone. So that means that maybe someone had a partner, because when the widower comes out in the reverse, that just lets me know someone has a partner when dealing with this, working on this crop. And also dealing with this privileged lady had a partner working with her to try to bring two elements together and to temperance them and to balance them regarding this house. And also regarding this poor decision that she did make, maybe to attain this house. She made a choice, and it was a very poor decision regarding this house. And even this poor decision was regarding a red rum. She maybe tried to hire somebody when it says that she didn't. She wasn't alone, because when that widow card comes out, it speaks of somebody being left alone without their spouse. But when it does come in the reverse, she had a coward with her. She had somebody working with her on this house and on this balance, trying to mix these two substances together, trying to bring something together regarding this house and this family room. That's what they were trying to bring together. Something regarding something, maybe this was regarding a family. This privileged woman was, a part of your family that did try to bring this mixture together to create a red rum, and also to attain this fortune that was coming out in this second row. That was one of the other reasons that your family did come together with this plan, this poor plan. It was a very bad choice, a very bad decision, and a very bad action to try to attain this great fortune and to try to bring forth this crop, trying to grow a crop, trying to put the balance into this crop that they were working on growing. And then we next get this false person card coming out, also in that second row with the great fortune. And that false person does come out with that family card. So your family has a false person in it that is actually been working on growing a crop and trying to balance this out to get this done. And it's actually for some great fortune and for a house. And then we have the card of the material harvest in the reverse. And that does confirm that great fortune that comes out with that. It confirms it confirms the great fortune card. Also the Seven of Pentacles card that does speak of, something that was harvested and planted even. Something that was planted. There was no material harvest when it came to this Seven of Pentacles that was planted. Their crops didn't even they didn't get any crops from that harvest. When it comes to this house and this poor choice. And then it says a card that never appears or neither wins or loses. That never appears, neither wins or loses. So that's that game card again, gaming. So this was like a game to them, to your family and to whoever this coward is that was actually trying to harvest this. He was trying to harvest some of material harvest. They did get the Haymaker card also in that second row that came out. And so they didn't win or lose when it came to this balance and this crop that they did try to harvest and plant coming down to this house. And this false person, they didn't get any harvest on that. The crops didn't even produce, seed time and harvest, that's what that reminds me of. And they didn't get any harvest, this family. And some, like I said, they did not work alone, because like this widow usually speaks of efforts that someone is by themselves. They're left by themselves without a partner. But when it does come in the reverse, that means they had a partner. They worked with a partner, even a family, on this red rum to get this house. It was a poor plan. It was a poor plan, and it didn't even yield a harvest. Because next we do have the Eight of Wands coming out in that third row, right on top of the Ace of Swords. And so those two cards together tell me that, that Eight of Wands, it speaks of some direction. It's got these 8 wands traveling. It can speak of a fast action, fast movement, even communication sometimes that 8 of Wands can be depicting. But when we get this, it even depicts some spell work activity that they did implement in this investment and in this choice. This was a part of the choice to attain this house and to attain this great fortune. They had to use a little of this spell work to get their the results, that the intended results that they were after. And it does speak of a marriage in the reverse, which does mean a breakup. Maybe this spell work caused the breakup, or maybe they did spell work so that they could actually bring a marriage down. They wanted to bring something to an end regarding this marriage using spell work and fast actions, and even, trying to control the direction of the course of actions. Even that's what the spell work was used for. It was to control the course of the direction of actions that, these poor choices that were made regarding this house. And even also regarding this mature male coming out in that third row, So he was a part of the team, that worked with your family, or he was just a part of working with your family in general. And there will be no moving on in this situation, because we got this Ace of Swords coming out, which does reveal, it's the truth card. This Ace of Swords, it just cuts through all this, all these investments. This Ace of Swords has come upon these investments and these seeds that were planted, you know, by your family. And then it says, those who stumble twice over the same stone are fools. CPR. So once this actual truth, came out, once this actual Ace of Sword comes on deck, it brings someone to stumble twice over the same sword, the same stone, and it's calling them a fool, because that truth just it cut through all the actions that were taken to commit this red rum, and even the actions that were taken to attain this house, and even the actions that were taken regarding this great fortune and this these mixtures, trying to bring these two things together, trying to bring something together and trying to mix something up, Let's see, what's this? Oh, this that marriage card. I hate to see that card. And then in this fourth row, we do get the Four of Pentacles, which speaks of holding on to something. But when it's in the reverse, it speaks of letting go. So these actions and these crops and these choices, these poor choices, we can't leave that out, because you got the Lovers here, but then when you get the Two of Wands reversed, that means that this was a very bad decision. That these actions were poor. They were very, very bad, and they were not fruitful because of this Seven of Pentacles coming out. They didn't produce any harvest with that. Something that they worked together on. They weren't alone. And maybe someone, didn't die. That's another thing, because the widower speaks of a passing. Someone has lost someone to a passing. And maybe that was one of the lies that were said, that somebody passed. And they didn't. They didn't pass. And they had to let go of trying to attain this house, and let go of this great fortune coming out also in that second row. Because whatever journey, and then we get the Lover's card again in the reverse, in this fourth row, with this holding on or letting go of the decisions that was made. They had to actually let go of those choices from the very first rows of that red rum, and then, even trying to balance some things that didn't mix together. These things didn't go together, and they tried to just blend them anyways. There was no temperance to these elements that they were working upon. And the Ace of Swords had to come into the situation to bring in the truth about this breakup, and the truth about someone stumbling over the same stone twice. That's the truth that this Ace of Swords brings in. And there will be no moving on regarding this mature man and the direction that something has taken, the direction of this spell work that this mature man was working on, and the journey that took a lot of patience, and even this journey and whatever they had patience that they worked on, and this choice that they refused to let go of, It says those who make the first bad move always lose the game. It brought along a loss along this journey. With this journey came a loss to this pill popper, which does come out with that hermit card, this pill popper card. Refuse to let go of the lifestyle and the actions and choices. They just wanted to stick with it. That's that winning at all cost energy. And they figured if they could use their patience, that they would bring in, you know, the harvest that they were expecting, or that the results that they were expecting. They figured if they just had patience, that those results would, eventually manifest. But then in the very last row, we do get the Page of Pentacles, which does speak of, them pages, they bring the messages. But this message that this page brought, it was actually about someone losing interest. Someone has become bored of the situation regarding this choice to try to get this house. Someone has lost interest in it. And it comes out with this Lover card. And then it also comes out with this main female in the reverse. So she did have something to do with this main female and this mature man. And then we get a privileged lady in the first row. So these are the three characters that probably was working on these, on this red rum, working on these crops and on these substances that they were trying to bring, elements, that they were trying to bring together. And it looks like it was even regarding a sacrifice coming out in the reverse. So they tried to make us a sacrifice. This main female did. She tried to make someone a sacrifice. And it has this Queen of Swords coming out in the reverse, which does give the message of the green light. So no, that's going to be a red light. That something has stopped with this Queen of Swords. A situation that was unbreakable, They had to stop because the situation, maybe it came to it got broke down. The situation got broken down because we did get that Ace of Swords coming out, and we got a red light on something that they did try to sacrifice. And this sacrifice did not, the sacrifice did not even go through. It did not manifest.